Welcome to the Boss It Weekly podcast, a no-nonsense, no-hype, frank and close-up analysis of what is currently working and what is not in the world of software. The Boss It podcast is packed with major takeaways for software business owners and managers. So, let's begin.
Welcome to Boss It Podcast. This is the podcast for software entrepreneurs throughout the world who want to find some insight. They want to be stimulated. They want to listen to people from within the industry discussing their thoughts, opinions, strategies, and methodologies. And we are talking to a wide range of people from across the globe who are involved in this sector. It may be that they are a software entrepreneur themselves, they're a founder, maybe they're a long-time veteran, maybe that they are working alongside entrepreneurs. So anything really that we think that might be of interest specifically to the software sector. Today I've got probably the youngest podcaster, I think, or I've got the youngest person that I've had on Boss It, who is also a podcaster himself. It's Nicki Friis, who had his first business when he was just 16. And I think it's very important because there is this younger generation that is coming through in the software sector that do have a different perspective. I speak to people and have done for many years because I've been in this sector, for over 30 years. So I know there's that generation that have been in the sector for a long time from the real beginnings. But I think that there's also a couple of other generations coming through that they have grown up with knowing about software. This has not been so much that has been new to them. And a lot of the techniques and approaches that are applied within this industry, especially around marketing, are quite natural. And there is a difference. So I think it's really useful to be able to speak to quite a wide range of people. So welcome, Nicki.
Thank you so much, Mark. Hi everyone. I'm Nicki. Nice to meet you all.
I'm really looking forward to this because we had a quick chat. We've not met. A lot of the people that I've invited onto my podcast, I perhaps have known for a few years and I've met, but we haven't. So it's quite. This is going to be an exploratory conversation for me as well. And a number of things that you mentioned to me just a few minutes ago before we started recording, I think will be of interest to the people that listen to Boss It. So tell me a little bit about you starting at 16 years of age, because that's quite unusual. We do hear that from entrepreneurs starting at 16 years of age. I mean, you're hardly out of school at that stage. What did you do? What made you want to start a business at that age?
Yeah, I mean, it actually came quite natural to me because when I was 13 years old, I started, I'm based out of Denmark. So in Denmark, the culture around going out and drinking is a lot different. We drink a lot over here.
Yes.
But when I was 13, I started going clubbing, basically. And I wasn't old enough to actually enter the clubs, which were for 14-year-old plus. But what I basically did when I was 13 was that I started promoting these parties to my friends who were a bit older than me. And then when I was 16 years old, I basically tried to create what I call a promotion network or promotion brand, as I called it, Copenhagen Events. It was actually called. And what I did was that I gathered access to a lot of my friends' Facebook accounts.
Yes.
Then whenever they were hosting a Facebook event, then I was basically logging into all these people on my friends' Facebook accounts and inviting their network to the people's events, and of course also my own network. So I was basically inviting 10,000 to 20,000 people to parties in Copenhagen just through Facebook.
Wow. So you were gaining access, you were getting their login details to your friends' Facebook pages so that you could leverage their network to promote these discos and these events and parties. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. It was a different time.
So were you being paid for this? How did that work? What was the business model, or was this something you were just doing for fun at that stage?
No. So basically, whenever anyone had a party that they wanted to promote, they reached out to me or at least the people who reached out to me. And what I would then do is that I would pay people would pay per invite. So I had I created within Facebook back then. I believe you can still do it today. I created a list. So I created lists on all the different profiles, people in Copenhagen, between 16-year-old to 19-year-old people, and also a bit older, because I was also promoting some 18-year-old plus clubbing events and discounts.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And then basically back in the days, you could have this JavaScript. So I could basically just enter it into the browser, and then it would go through the list and invite all the people. And it was, I don't know, a 10-minute work or something like that. And then I would invite, let's say, 5,000 people to an event. And then, of course, I paid the people who I had access to their friends, of course.
Well, that's very entrepreneurial. I mean, and that was 13. So you're 26.
That was 16.
Oh, that was 16. Okay, so you started it, you were looking at it, and you were mainly doing this when you were 16. So 10 years ago. What did you learn as a 16-year-old doing that?
Well, I mean, back then I didn't thought of it as a business at first. It was just until later, I think, when I was 17 and a half, maybe I was going into SEO, web shops, and all these other things. But what I learned back then was that, I mean, what I have learned in retrospective maybe is that I did all of that to get status within, you can say, networks, and to kind of get friends and get get girls to like me, and of course other cool people to like me.
Yes.
But I mean, back then, what I thought I was learning was how to run a small business, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I know today is that I did it really out of egoistic reasons to kind of look cool, I guess.
Well, yeah, we won't knock you too much. Being a 16-year-old, I think that's what a lot of 16-year-olds will want to do. That's a natural part of growing up, isn't it? That being popular amongst your peers, that's very, very natural. And I think you probably, looking back now, you can see that. But from a business perspective, what do you think you learned? What were the lessons that you think that you perhaps still use today? Perhaps that's things you don't do, but what do you think the lessons were?
Yeah, I mean, back then I was quite good at building, you can say, an audience or following or network, and it's actually something that I've put aside nowadays. But I guess that what I learned back then is that you could really start a business anywhere at any time if you think of a way to acquire customers in a cheaper way than you can say, having an average revenue per customer that you achieve or that you get afterwards. And I think what I also learned is that there's so many opportunities in the different channels that's out there, and you can call them growth channels or traction channels. And I think a channel like Facebook, there's so many opportunities in Facebook, but really also understanding, you can say, the history of the network and why and how you can have your content, but you can also build your following, and basically how you can apply it to other networks popping up all the time, because Facebook, of course, will get saturated at some point. There will no longer be any users back then, like with MySpace or like with Friendster, as we know him.
Yes.
But basically learning the dynamics of how social networking on these platforms work is something that I've used ever since, I guess.
Yes, and the importance of knowing how to make that work, I guess. Because Facebook itself has changed quite a bit, in the last 10 years, hasn't it? I think we're seeing, I think initially it seemed to be something that was very personal. You didn't tend to see many people advertising businesses, but that seems to have changed. And some people could do it very, very effectively on Facebook. Do you see that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, back when I started out, there wasn't timeline, and there was actually also no advertisement network, I guess.
Yes.
I saw an old ad from Facebook advertisement, a media kit in Harvard, in the Harvard student paper, I guess.
Yeah.
Where you could basically see the stats on how many weekly active users they had back then. I think they had 60% of people were daily active users, and 90% of people were weekly active users, as I remember it. So you could also see that the retention rate already back then was quite high, which is something that is you can say a good indicator of if the company would be a success in the future.
Yeah. And was there a cost involved in what you were doing then? So did you have to watch your cost against your income, or were you being able to do this effectively for free because you were using your friends' Facebook profiles?
Yeah, I paid all the people that I had logged into. So they were basically, you can say, promoters for me. So they would get a commission for all the people that they had invited that actually came to the parties. So we had guest list and everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a good model. Because
it worked.
Yeah, I think that's important, because there's a lot of organizations and quite big companies that spend a lot of money on marketing, and they sometimes struggle to see the justification. To them, the marketing can be a big cost, and it can be sometimes difficult to put an ROI figure on that. How did things progress from there? So you started that about 16, 17, 18. How long were you doing that for?
I was doing that for approximately 1.5 years, and then I started to learn about tax and tax income and all these other things that I didn't know anything about. I didn't register any company ID back then.
Right.
All these other things were kind of like hitting me hard in my and I also started going to high school back then, since I was 16, 17 till I was 19. Back in Denmark, it's what we call gymnasium.
Yes.
And actually, I started multiple business back then, like online businesses. Nothing serious. It was just small projects. But basically, it's a 3-year education place that we are going through. And the second year, I had so bad, what do you call it in English? Score.
Right.
That I was about to get kicked out of gymnasium back then. It was 1.7, and I had to have at least 2 to get to the third year.
Right.
Yeah, and I was called into the what's called the school principal's office.
Yes.
Together with my parents to have a serious talk, and my parents were basically saying that I had to focus now. I had to at least, I had one part-time job at a retail store. I had some modeling on the side as well. I had like 3 different projects that I tried to get going. And they were basically saying, you have to prioritize. You have to focus now, because you really want to get your degree here. Yeah,
because you were being distracted from your studies. Your academic results were starting to struggle.
Yeah, and I couldn't see the reason, really. I couldn't see the reason for why I had to participate in class. I could sit in the back of the class together with my computer, with keyboard and mouse and everything. And sometimes I even had a hard disk and maybe even a router, taking business meetings in the breaks. I mean, like 17 years old, I don't know. Anyway, I mean, but yeah, I was being distracted, and I couldn't see the purpose of education when I had something super great, in my opinion, going.
Yeah, I think that's not uncommon. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that have felt that. A lot that have gone to college or university, have started their first business and have dropped out because of it, because they think, the education is to get them to the stage where they can start a business. And actually, I've started one already.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what happened next?
Yeah. So I dove into, I remember sitting at a festival here in Denmark, the largest festival that we have. Hundreds of thousands of people are attending something called Roskilde Festival. And it was after the first year of gymnasium. And I was sitting there. Everybody was drinking and dancing, playing loud music and everything. And I had printed out 2 books in A4 papers that I brought along because I didn't have I didn't want to buy the actual books. And I was reading through those books. It was one book was on SEO.
Yes.
Basically just deep dive in SEO, and the other was in this whole e-commerce, building web shops, etc. It was called E-Businessman, I think the book was called in Danish.
Right.
And after that festival, I had so many ideas on how and what I wanted to build in regards of building an e-commerce business. So that was actually what I started out with back then. First, just drop shipping, trying to sell t-shirts, super, you can say not fancy at all, but just to get started, building it in one of these ready-made platform formats, and then first later on moving into an actual like e-commerce shop store with the running shoes.
For those that may not know, I know about drop shipping because I know my son did that. And I think he learned a lot from it. You just explain briefly what drop shipping is.
Yeah. So it basically means that you find a supplier online, or you can find it anywhere actually. And then what you do is that you list their products on your website. And whenever you get a sale on your website, you tell the supplier to send the product to the customer directly. So you don't have any storage.
Yes.
Yeah.
You haven't got packaging. You haven't got the issues with how much stock you're holding, because that can be risky. You know, having to invest into stock that you can't sell. You don't have any of that risk. It's an attractive way of doing business.
It is, but of course it's also quite expensive because you have to pay. You get a lower margin, of course.
Yes,
but it's similar to what Amazon is doing, where they also have their what can you call supply houses, or what you can call it. I can't remember what it's called, distribution centers, like in Germany or all around the world actually, where you can basically, if you are a producer of any goods, you can send all of your goods to Amazon.
To their warehouses. Yep.
Yeah, exactly, and they will do everything for you.
Yeah.
I haven't tried that, but I know it works for a lot of people that I'm familiar with.
You're familiar with Pinterest?
Yeah.
What I've seen is a trend recently is people taking probably newer products that are not so familiar, newer products to the marketplace, but doing a really good job in how they present them, creating short video clips, making them seem very attractive, and selling from Pinterest. So there may be a 30-second clip that you can click on, typically sort of gadgets and personal items that quite often sold at a higher price, but it's their ability in sales and marketing that is winning them the sales. You know, if you did a search and you go and search on eBay, you could probably find that product at half the price, but they know that there's going to be a certain percentage of people that will go, that looks good, I'll just buy it. PayPal, whatever, buy it, and they make their margin.
Yeah.
What did you learn from drop shipping?
What I learned from drop shipping, I mean, what I learned from e-commerce in general, of course, was the numbers game. From drop shipping specifically, what I learned is that, what did I learn? I learned a lot of things, but I mean, I learned about, of course, marketing, because that was what I did. I was marketing my products, our products, and I didn't have to care about all the logistics of it. That was why I chose dropshipping back then.
Yes.
And it was a super fast way to set up a business. I could set up the web shop in 1 to 2 days, I guess, with branding and like basic Facebook pages and all these basic things that I wanted to set up in order for me to get any customers and any clients. And of course, reaching out to distributors, to retailers of these shoes that we wanted to sell, all the merchandise, etc. Sorry, that was later on with the running shoe business. But from dropshipping, it was super easy. Let me just tell you about how it went. So I actually back then, please don't judge me on this, I downloaded Photoshop on a torrent back in those days. I was 17, remember?
Yes.
Please. So basically downloading Photoshop, I was creating a design or basically just a logo. I uploaded the logo to this dropshipping store, and they were basically putting it on the t-shirt, printing the t-shirts and everything. I just had to take the picture of the t-shirt with my logo or my design on, put it on my website, and then basically just advertise that. It was just the easiest way to get started, I guess, back then.
Yeah. Great. Yeah.
And I'm not a good designer either.
Yeah. Amazing. So I suppose that you're going to learn a number of things. What sells? Because if you're selling a wide range of things, it sounds like you tried different things. If you're selling a wide range of things, you'll find what sells, what doesn't, but also how to sell products, what's going to make things seem more attractive, how to communicate in your marketing. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, back then I tried to leverage the network on Facebook that I had because of the events. So already back then, I don't even believe that I have more Facebook friends now than I had back then. I think I even had more back then. Yeah, I tried to leverage the network that I had built up, or the audience that I had built up by advertising, inviting them to my page, then posting original content, content from the suppliers of the running shoes, of course, linking to the shop and all those things. But I was really utilizing the capabilities of Facebook back then.
So you already had an audience, you had a target market. You would probably, that target market would probably be of a similar age to yourself in that range typically. Would that be true? Because, because of what you were doing, and then you would probably be picking products relevant to that group.
Yeah, I agree. So typically what you also see with many entrepreneurs is that they build something for themselves first.
Yes.
Yeah, and what we did with the running shoe, I mean, with the t-shirts, I of course, I also wanted the designs that I was designing, and that was also part of the reason for why I did it. With the running shoes, that was actually because there was, you can say, a gap in the market that I needed. I was running what we call zero drop, which is basically super flat running shoes without any difference in centimeters in height from the heel to the forefoot, front foot. Yeah, that's zero drop running shoes. And I don't know if we can say that, digging that trend and basically running barefoot and running in 5 fingers, if you remember those.
I do. Yes, I do. Very much so. Yes.
Yeah. And I was searching for a web shop that was selling just those type of shoes and products, because that was what I believed in back then.
Okay.
And basically then I started that.
Okay, well, there's another lesson you've probably learned, which is about specializing. You've gone for the specialist type of shoe, because I remember, because I used to be a triathlete, I used to do running, is that a lot of the shoes that you used to see with the sort of the Nike with the big heels was not typically the running shoe that would be used by the more serious runner. And then there was this trend with people running barefoot, and then the sort of the fight where you could see the individual toes within the shoe. I don't know if there was more than one make on those, but I remember seeing those quite a lot. And they, for quite some time, and they still may be, they were very, very popular. So specializing in that area, I can see the benefit of that. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, it's true.
I looking through your past history. You've been involved in lots of different types of businesses. IdeaNote, was interesting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so thank you. IdeaNote was a company. So back in 2014, it was actually two twin brothers, both developers, and one of my friends, a business guy, who sat together in a basement, and they were basically all working part-time jobs on the side. And then in the beginning of 2015, I got together with them, and we kind of started working on this app. So basically, the whole problem that we wanted to solve is that I worked inside a retail store here in Copenhagen called Sportmaster back in the days, and it is basically a sporting retail store.
Yes.
And I had so many troubles that I was this guy who had a lot of ideas. I had ideas all day long, and I wanted to share them with the store managers, and even with you can say the store owners or the chain owners. There's 120 stores of Sportmasters in Denmark, but I didn't feel like my ideas were getting heard by anybody. And even if I sent an email to I don't know, I can't remember who I sent the emails to, but sometimes I sent an email with 6 ideas that I believe was so good that they had to implement them, and I got no response or no reply. So basically, IdeaNote started as an app where you, as an employee within an organization, could write down your ideas, and then you could send them to the people who could actually make a decision on them. So basically getting your ideas through to the right people. That was how it all started back in 2014-15.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you would have been around about 20 years old at that stage, roughly, was it?
Yeah.
I really identify with that, because when I was at college and I was studying, I worked part-time in a photographic store. And I was always looking for how could I improve systems and processes? How could they do things differently? Now, this was much smaller. It wasn't a chain. And I did have access to I used to work with the 2 owners. And I sometimes laugh and look back on my younger self then about how I would go in one day and quite sometimes without asking them, I would say, let me just reorganize this. And this was a long-established shop that had been there years and years, and I would reorganize things. But they gave me the freedom to do that. You know, I think they must have sort of inwardly smiled sometimes. But I think that sometimes could be something that's inside you. You feel that need you want to get your ideas out there. So this product that you created, IdeaNote, that sounds like a great idea. I mean, I know there was a statistician, Edward Deming, who he was management style. Part of his consultancy, he would go into organisations. He would go and talk to people that were doing the work and get ideas from them, not just talk to top management. He would have loved something like this. So this was a system, if you like, where the employees could contribute their ideas.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, what we started to see, and we also did, you can say, a bit of a pivot over time, was that when we just created an app where you could, it's basically, let's imagine a note-taking app, but only for ideas. And then you would basically share that list with the top management. And let's say there was 120 stores.
Yes.
They would get, I don't know, thousands of ideas every week or something like that. And and it was so overwhelming for them that, I mean, what should they do? They had no system of sorting them, systemizing it, organizing their ideas, evaluating their ideas, prioritizing their ideas, or anything like that. And that was why we did a pivot into, you could say, a platform, a real idea management system or management software, instead of just a simple app.
And what was that change? What did that enable? Was it a change in how the management could manage those ideas, or was it a change in how those ideas were presented or developed?
I mean both.
Great.
So we started. So first we started with this simple concept of this app, and then we were looking into, okay, how can we come up with good ideas? What does it take to come up with good ideas? And what we found out was that you need a great challenge. You need a question that you have to solve. You need a problem that you need to solve in order to come up with the good ideas. Otherwise, the companies would get ideas in east and west about, can we have more cake at the office, or down to ideas that actually matter. Like
yes,
it could be like, I have an idea for this app that could save us X amount of time within the supply chain, or whatever it could be. It could be all types of ideas. So what we basically started to kind of wrap our product or build our product around was the concept of asking challenges. So basically, you could limit it to top management, but basically everybody could ask a challenge within this platform. So imagine you are, let's say, you, Mark, and you are presenting a challenge for your coworkers, or your team, your employees.
Right. Yes.
And Yeah, and then all your employees have this platform or this app where they can basically contribute with an idea to solve the specific challenge or problem that you are facing in top management, or how you could see it. But it could also go the other way. It could also be, I don't know, your cleaning staff who has a challenge around the tables in your offices are placed in such a way that it's very hard for them to do the cleaning. It could also be a challenge that they could present in theory on how to maybe reorganize the table so it would make a much more efficient cleaning process, I guess.
Excellent. I mean, that sounds good. I think that would also help to get buy-in from the management, because it's starting from, we have a problem that needs to be solved, and here are the ideas, rather than, as you said, somebody wanting more cake at lunchtime or changing the colour of their uniform or something, which is probably not such a bigger issue. Yeah, it's a nice way of going about it. So what happened after that? What happens with IdeaNote? Is that still going? How did they actually develop from there?
Yeah, so I mean, the platform has been through multiple versions. I quit the company back in 2017. They got a new board, a new investors, a new chairman, and of course new directors in the company as well. Still own a minority share in the company. It's still going today. They have at least 20,000 companies using IdeaNote. Companies such as General Electric, Disney, IKEA, BCG, etc. A lot of companies have been using it over time.
Fantastic.
I don't know exactly how it goes, to be honest. I have.
No, you've been out of business for some time now, haven't you? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been diluted so much.
Yes.
that I don't have any say in the company, but I still know the people involved in the company, and we're still friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
What were the key learning points for you from your time with IdeaNote?
Wow. There was a lot.
I didn't say this podcast was going to be easy, did I? I mean, I want to challenge you. I want to hear.
I'm up for a challenge. Yes. I like that, Mark. Thank you.
Good.
Yeah. So I mean, I was how old was I? 20, 21 years old, maybe, and we were 5 people, all in start 20s.
Yes.
We hired a bunch of people. We got investment quite quickly. We got incubator and accelerator money because we participated in an accelerator. We hired, 6 interns in 1 week at one point, and they were all kind of working. I mean, we didn't even have jobs for them. We just asked people if they wanted to intern for us, and it was a huge mess back then in kind of being a leader and being a manager. And I think many of the lessons that I've learned around that time is you can say is my leadership style and basically running a business. And if you believe that interns are free, I can tell you that they are not.
Yes.
You will spend a lot of time with interns because the reason for why they're interning is because they want to learn something, and you have to teach them because you are the person who know about your business, know about your users and customers and what you do in general. I mean, So if I should take like a tangible tip to take away from this is that, yes, you can rely on interns and also free interns as we did. I've done it again later on in a more systemic way. But you definitely have to align expectations with them from the start, that this is the assignment. There's we call it a SOP, a standard operational procedure, on how to perform this particular task. And that is the job that they have to do. Yes, there might also be other opportunities to work on something else, but in general, this is the task that we hire you for, and this is the way to do it. And we expect you to put in this amount of hours. You will get free lunch, you will get coffee, and you will enjoy our company gatherings, etc. But this is what you are interning to do, basically. And if you do that, we have seen great success with it, especially on pitching journalists, etc., and writing content and articles. We have seen that work quite well.
Right. Yes, that's interesting. So you've created a culture that attracts people to you, and you've been able to get access to good interns, but you've also seen that there's a responsibility and a time demand, I guess, for you and for the other people within the organization to really get those people on board. What did you so in being able to gain publicity for your company, dealing with the media, you made mention of that. What did you learn there?
So where we used the interns with, you can say the PR and the media was in a later company.
What company was that?
That was Patent Renewal, patentrenewal.com, which is basically a patent renewal management software.
Okay.
And I mean, of course, we learned a lot of things, but basically a super stringent structure on you need to pitch 5 articles a day. You need to pitch this article to 5 journalists a day. You have specific KPIs that you need to reach at least 4 mentions, or you have to create 4 links, backlinks back to our website with a domain ranking above 60 within each month. That was basically a KPI.
Right.
And that was how they were measured. And if they did well, they would get hired. If they didn't, then of course we would help them on to a new adventure or give them a good review, or at least a decent review, of course, depending on their performance, of course. But we were setting up a system that was super, super like smooth and running. One other thing is that when we started patentrenewal.com, we didn't have such a good brand yet. IdeaNote was super viral company that everybody understood and everybody liked. Patent Renewal, on the other hand, was super niche, targeting intellectual property owners and IP law firms, intellectual property law firms, and a specific niche within those firms. So far away from what all my friends and my entire network was basically working with at that time. So
you couldn't leverage that network that you'd built up because it was a different market.
Exactly, and also it was the most boring industry. Nobody wanted to work with within that company at that time, unless they were studying intellectual property law.
Yes,
and it's super hard to find marketing people and salespeople and I mean designers and developers who have done that and have an interest in intellectual property rights. So what we did back then was that I created a growth course, basically a course with, I think, 7 modules on growth marketing.
Right.
And that was the incentive that I was giving the interns who would join us for 3 months. I would teach them growth marketing. They would go through this course. They would get a certificate afterwards, but they had to do all these other things within, you can say, our boring industry.
Wow, so you were attracting people to a business that probably wasn't seeing as that sexy or exciting by offering them training in the area of growth marketing.
Exactly.
That's entrepreneurial. That's very interesting. And that area of growth marketing is something that you're very much focused upon now. Tell us about what you're doing now, because I know when we discussed beforehand, you described yourself as a growth strategist. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So also a bit more background maybe is that when I worked at IdeaNote and when I worked at patentrenewal.com, I took on the role as the COO, so the operational person within that company, but also the CMO role, so the marketing officer role at the same time.
Yes.
I loved marketing and I worked with that for many, many, and I didn't know anyone better than me to actually do it at that point. But at the same time, we had a CEO who was selling, and we also needed to deliver on what he was selling. And that was why you can say I took the position as a COO, because I had to make sure our operation went on as well. And you can say when we then started patentrenewal.com, I put myself in the same role. We were like, okay, our CEO, he can sell. We still need to deliver. Market the focus on marketing could wait just a little bit, or at least we could tone it down just a little bit.
Yes.
But what I found myself with was that I couldn't do what I was really passionate about and what I loved, which was this growth marketing thing or marketing in general.
Yeah.
So the reason for why I actually quit here December 2019, I still own a majority of shares in the company, was because I just wanted to work with growth marketing now. I was, you can say, tired of the operational things. I just wanted to work with what I loved. And that was why I started this growth advisory firm.
I could see that probably the area of IP and patent renewal could be quite a dry subject. Yeah, I've seen quite a few people that have IP, and they've discussed with me about patents, that they can become quite cynical. I know that they've had to pay a lot of money to lawyers and consultants. And let's put it this way, I don't think that money has always been the best spent. So you can end up with some very cynical people where they've paid out money to so-called experts and not got what they wanted. But it also sounds like you had there was an opportunity for growing self-awareness to really understand where your passion lay. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And one more thing on this intellectual property rights and patents. Yeah, it's super expensive.
Yes.
And the reason for why we started this business, I mean, why should we both jumped from IdeaNote and then started patent renewal. And the reason for why we did that was because we actually wanted to become inventors ourselves. We were like, all the people who have done something meaningful in the world, they have been inventors to some degree, at least. That was our assumption back then. So we wanted to be the next Nobel Prize winners or Lasker Prize winners. We wanted to, do something great in the world. So we wanted to become inventors. So we were basically looking into this patent area because we knew in order to invent something, you have to protect it. Otherwise, all the big players in the market will probably outcompete you quite fast if you do not have any protection to protect your ideas.
They'll steal your idea and then they'll market it and take it for their own.
Yeah, exactly. So we basically looked into this and we found this. We found it super complex and super costly, and we were like, this patent thing, this is preventing so many inventors around the world from realizing their ideas, primarily because of the cost involved.
Yes.
Yeah. So we set ourselves on a mission to not eliminate, but make it a lot more cheaper to protect your rights and also gain your rights. So that was actually the path that we set ourselves on. We wanted to help inventors around the world protect and get patents in a more cost-effective way.
Great goal to have. And I totally agree with you. I've seen very many inventive people who don't get the rewards that they should have from coming up, because innovation drives everything. It drives industry, it drives businesses, it creates jobs. But if you're not rewarding those people who are really good at bringing new ideas forward, then you start to, cut off the supply. Mm-hmm. I've seen that a number of times where the cost involved has been prohibitive, and individuals and even small groups of people, they just can't raise the funding to be able to do that. And that may not be their best skill. So a worthy goal, I would say. What happened next? What happened next?
Yeah, so I mean, I quit the company again because they still run and it's still great, but because I really wanted to focus on, you can say, my passion, and I wanted to be more free. In IdeaNote, we had 25 people working at our company. At Patent Renewal, we had 20 people working at our companies. And I didn't want to manage anymore. I just wanted to be free and do what I love. I mean, my dream with my growth advisory firm is to be, you can say, a direct advisor or consultant to head of growth at Google or Facebook or whatever the next cool company is in the future. That is really my dream, to be like an independent advisor to those people, but not to build a big, massive agency. I'd rather be the one that you can call it the emergency for growth at the coolest company in the world.
So what would be the ideal company for you?
As a client or for me to build?
Well, for you to assist, because that's what it sounds like. You working as a growth marketing consultant, is that correct?
Yeah.
So who would you love to work for?
Yeah. So I mean, I have specialized within software as a service. That's also where my own experience is.
Right.
And social platforms and e-commerce subscription platforms as well, because that's also in spaces where I have some knowledge. Yeah, so that's specifically the companies that I'm looking at right now. And ideally, I mean, my dream could be to assist companies like, I really like Atlassian.
Yes.
If you know that company, they have tools like Jira. They also own Trello now.
Yes.
Productivity companies.
One of the fastest growing software companies out there. Lots and lots of tools. Just trying to remember the name of their CEO, but they became a unicorn company valued at over $1 billion some time ago, but grew very, very quickly, very successful.
Yeah, I really like that company. I don't know. I actually don't know why. Of course, I would also like to work with other companies that are doing something, you can say, even greater positive impact in the world. I don't know, NGOs or humanitarian organizations.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm doing a little bit of pro bono on the side, doing some workshops for those type of companies, just to it's only like 3 hours every month or something like that, but it's kind of, then I can take it off. I don't know if it makes sense to you, but then I can kind of tick off that I'm also doing something great.
And I noticed on your LinkedIn profile that you did a TEDx talk. Was that in Copenhagen?
So that is actually what I would call a growth hack. So I had one of my friends who was delivering one TEDx talk. And what I did is that I actually just jumped on the stage right after, and then I made them take a picture of me.
Right, okay. Well, that's very honest of you. It convinced me. There's a picture of you with your arms out looking like you're presenting, and it's got a TEDx background.
So yeah, no, actually, I'm also a public speaker, but I haven't done that for quite many years. I'm doing one here in November, December, in front of 200 people. They don't want me to talk about growth marketing. They want me to share a personal story. I don't know what it should be yet, because to be, I mean, the best stories out there is people who have gone through some shit, typically. Yes. And I haven't. So I have to figure out, like, how can I tell an interesting story? Yeah.
So maybe you ought to put yourself into a difficult situation, make yourself homeless for a few years, and then build your way back up, and you'd have a great story.
Yeah, exactly. I'm considering sharing some of my deepest secrets. Yes. I heard one guy talk, and he was like, "Your deepest secrets will set you free."
Yes.
And I'm thinking, I'm scared, of course. I'm thinking if I should share maybe one of them, or maybe just all of them.
Yeah, I think you underestimate your own personal story, because you've been sharing your story with us today. We've been talking now for over 40 minutes, and you've been talking about your journey, and I found it very interesting today. So I think that the truth is often the best story of all, but you might not necessarily see all of the elements of it. I think you've done a great job today. I've really enjoyed the conversation with you. I'd like to continue the conversation, actually, after we finish this podcast. I've just got a couple of ideas I'd like to discuss briefly with you. But I would like to say thank you very much for coming onto the Boss It podcast today. I am sure that we will get some positive feedback. I think you did a great job today, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope I didn't make it too difficult for you. I wasn't too tough on you today, was I?
No, not at all, Mark. I have really enjoyed talking with you. I like this concept of just having a casual conversation. It makes me feel so relaxed, and I really enjoy talking with you. And of course, hopefully sharing something of great value to your audience. That is the reason why I'm here as well.
No, I've been jotting down different points that I was picked up, and I've actually got a page and a half of a sort of a mind map that I've created. So that's great. I think that there's quite a few takeaways for people, and well, I'm sure that it will provide a pleasant 40 minutes for people to listen to. So thank you very much for that, Nicki. That was the Boss It podcast, and as always, trying to get as many diverse people onto the Boss It podcast as possible. And I hope you enjoyed that. I know that I really did. And if you've enjoyed it, then please share it. Please tell your friends and colleagues. And if you've got any ideas, just please let me know, as I'm always willing to listen to ideas that you may have for future podcasts. So for now, keep focused on your goals, keep safe, and I'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.